This is for the installation of running boards on a 2013 Toyota RAV4. These are the generic $92 running boards you can get on Amazon or eBay. They say they're OEM, fitting 2013 to 16. I did encounter some problems, being this is 13. I think they were more geared towards the 16 model. So I'm documenting. This is the driver's side, has already been installed. I stood on both sides. They take the weight very well. They're being installed. My mother-in-law has issues getting in and out of my wife's car now with hip replacements and knee replacements. So we put these on at $92. I didn't think you'd go wrong. Again, there was some installation issues. You have to take off the rear right there. We did add a little bronze strip to the running board, add a little color to it because it was plain and matched my wife's calipers. And we do have to reinstall the front mud flap. That we're going to cut away a little bit, I believe is the way to do that. But we'll get that back on. We're going to show you the modifications we had to make to get this to fit properly and securely, and to make sure that it really held weight. The original way that they show how to do it, I have my doubts that it would last long term. Okay, this is the passenger side, getting ready to install it. Laid out on the table is all the tools, and I'm going to explain what I did to had to customize the brackets to fit the car, because I believe the year difference. Plus, this is a very cheap kit, and you can tell by the way the welds were done, and it was just a slap together, get it out the door. And I believe it was actually modeled for the Japanese version of the Toyota RAV4 13. I believe that's why they say it goes from 13 to 16, because maybe on their year model it does perfect, but on this I believe they made a change in 16 underneath, and that's why you have to finagle a little bit to get these on. And I'm going to point that out right now to you. Enough talking. Okay, here's the front bracket right here, and it sits up. You have the big bolt right here that goes through the frame, comes down, and you stick it up and put it through. And here's the hole, right, the front part, where this screws into the flange that drops down from the car where you put your jack. And on that note, I want to point out that these are the bolts that they give you for that right there. Little 5mm. One, they're too long, and they only want you to use one of them. Now, I see a problem in that if you have it attached here and out over here where they tell you to attach it, when you put weight on it, this thing's going to rock because it's not stabilized across this whole part right here. So what I did was I replaced the one with two, and I put a back strap on. So this right here, once you put the bolts through here, this goes on the other side. After you go through the body work, this goes on the other side, then your nut goes on. You do have to get, these are 6mm, 20mm long, as opposed to the original 5mm, 25mm long. Now when I went to go put it in, I encountered an issue with the bracket over here. The nut was too big, the bolt was too big, it just wasn't enough clearance there. So you can see the little scribe mark there. I'm going to cut this out right here. I've already done it on the other one. I just wanted to show I had to cut this out with a jigsaw, and that way I was able to put the bolts all the way through and use the piece right here to trap the body work in between, and it made a really nice tight fit. So that's the front one, and that's what we did to improve the performance. We wanted to make sure that, again, my mother-in-law is using this to get in and out of the car. We wanted to make sure that she didn't have a problem. She is a little on the heavy side, not obese, but on the heavier side. So I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any issues with this. These are standard tools that we had to use to tighten this up. This is a 18 metric file and scraper to get some of the stuff off underneath. Sockets 13 and 10. Drill bits, I use this right here. to deburr. You need this right here to rip this piece off here once you use this for the installation. Going to the rear support, when we put it up, we noticed that it had the two holes right here, but they were actually below the flange. They were just, that hole was just even with the bottom of the flange that they show in the drawing here. So what I did was I went and got some 1/4 inch bar stock, 1 inch by 1/4, and some 1/8 by 1 steel stock. Cut these pieces out, drilled the appropriate hole, got a longer carriage bolt, because this was the original carriage bolt, too short. That's what they wanted you to shim it up with a bunch of washers to take up that space. Now, if you know anything about mechanically, if you take a bunch of washers and you put them underneath the central point like that right there, they're just going to rock on top of them and eventually work their way loose. It's just not sturdy. So that's why I went with the bar stock. It covers the whole area underneath. When it's tightened down, it's there. I ended up on the driver's side only using a 1/8 shim. So I made both. They can be changed in and out, and it worked perfect. The other issue with the cheap set was the U-bolts that they sent you weren't exactly U. They were more like V's. I had to bend them into shape. And they actually sent a spare one, which I was actually able to use to test fit by, instead of putting in the body, I put it in backwards into here and put it into the body, and then I was able to hang it and let it stay there and test fit the first one over there, so I knew how everything went. These holes right here need to be opened up just a hair, because this does not go through well at all. I could barely get it in, and you have to get it in far enough to get a nut on there, and it's very difficult if it's tight like that. And also, when you install that U, make sure you put this plastic piece on there. You're going to rip it off with the needle nose after you have the nuts on the end like that. But if this thing falls into the frame, you're not getting it out. So you want to make sure you put the plastic piece on it, because again, the only instructions I found were for the 16. I got them online as a 16 running board. All the parts match. They show what they do and everything. Again, those were the changes I had to make. I'm going to document each step as it's completed, so you won't be bored with watching me screw in screws and cursing when my thumb gets hit again. Getting ready for installation of the running board on the passenger side. This is an overview of it without the running board. Front mud flap is still on, the rear guard is still on, everything is as original. We'll document each step as we do it. I'm not going to document the simple stuff like removing the mud guard or the mud flap and that kind of stuff, but as each piece gets installed and locked into place, I'll videotape that and explain any difficulties and show the end result. So we drilled the holes in the flange here. You can see we ended up right in the middle, and that was by putting a shim underneath the bracket that goes right here. You can see right here, we put the shim underneath it, and that was the height we came up with. So you can see we have some good material right here that's going to hold, and I'm using 2 holes instead of the only 1. I had to hang this in its position to get that location to do that properly, because this kit doesn't come with the templates that are called out in the details right here, and they don't give you a dimension there either. So you have to hang it and mark it, pull it down, drill it. And again, I'm using a larger bolt than required. I'm using a 6mm right here instead. And I'm also capturing the flange, which I'll show in the back. Put this up on here. It has to go to the outside edge. Get everything in finger tight. I'm also going into the back instead of to the nuts to the front. Okay, as you can see the nuts right here. Okay, and there's the flange, the back side of it right here. And I'm going to show you how, instead of just putting nuts on there, I created the little back edge right here, which is going to trap this piece right in between here. Simply just put it over your nuts right there. You see, still some left over. That's why you need to get the longer nuts. You want to make sure that if you do use a shim plate that you line it up and have it square underneath there, underneath the angle, so it's supporting the whole weight. Tighten that up. Now you should be able to tighten up the back, and I did not remove the plastic shield, and I was able to get it in. A little bit of finagling, but it does work. So we're going to tighten up the back first, and I'm just going to use a wrench right here. Once you have the back U-bolt fastened in totally, and they're pretty solid, then you want to get this front piece here. Nuts are already through. I left that while I tightened up the back part, and I put that back plate on there. I'm going to put the nuts on there and then tighten it up. They're already on there, so we just need to tighten it up. These you can snug up pretty tight. So now this whole angle here is being held by the piece of metal here, but it's wedged in between the back plate. The two bolts are definitely holding it solid. So now we just tighten up the bottom bolt right here, and it's a done deal. Okay, so this is all snug. You can see this is definitely not going anywhere at all. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do the back, and we'll document that pretty much the same way. We've got the rear bracket ready to install. It's been notched and painted so that we can use the larger bolt here instead. I want to point out a discrepancy. This is the guide right here for the 13, for the 16, and this is 13. It's supposed to come with templates. This didn't come with it, so you have to put the bracket up and bolt it down, then mark the holes and then drill them. And as you can see right here on this second position right here, where the hole is located, right here is your jack point. These two indents in the metal right here, that's the jack point. And it looks to be about maybe 5 inches in front of it would be the, or 3 or 4 inches in front of it would be where where one of the holes is. And looking up on here, you can plainly see that there's no way that those holes line up with what's in the picture right there, this being a 13. And I believe this is one of the discrepancies they have between the 16 and the 13. But there's still enough meat there, and using the backer plate in between the nuts and the back side of the metal right here, pinching it in between there, that's going to give us some good strength. There's more than enough meat right there. As you can see, we're going to install the rear bracket. Holes are all done. We're going to install the bolt that goes up in the hole in the body. This is going to go to the front, and when you put it in, you're going to pull this to the back so it stops this way. Just like that. All right. The bottom bracket right here. You can see we made the notch out right here for the bolt to go through. So we can do both bolts. And take the bolts, set them in. We're going to set them in part way just so they grab, because we got to put the backer plate that's on going on there also. So we have a good bite. Here's the backer plate, and that's going to go in between This is going to be trapped in between the two pieces here. It's going to give it a very good solid bite. Once you have everything in place, tighten it up. I tighten up the flange first. You can see that is part of the car. And that running board is on there. It's on there for good. Two brackets are mounted, front and rear. We're going to put the running board on. Alright, the first thing you're going to want to do is to remove the bolt, line it up about where it's going to be at. You're going to need a small thin screwdriver to move the nuts back and forth to line it up with the slots. Once you put it up, simply open the doors. Hopefully that's not blocking too much of the view. Close them right back up. Flip it over. Sits right on there. That's it. Line up the front and the back. Needs to go forward a little bit. Okay. Now you just have to go underneath, line the nuts up with the slots, get the screws in, lock it down, and you're done. Continue installation of the courtesy light on another video. That's it for installing the running boards on a 2013 Toyota RAV4 using the OEM from Japan or China, I believe, for $92 running board. Some modifications, but it does come out looking alright when it's done, and it does support the weight with the modifications that I put on it. Hope this helps anybody out trying to do the same thing. I'll have a final part showing it all completed with the mud flap on the front and back on. If you had mud flaps and you removed them to put on the running boards, you do have to cut out the mud flap in the front. And I just finished this one here. It's been test fitted. I'm going to show you what the cutout looks like approximately. That's for this side. The other side was a bit different. Basically I cut it out almost to what I needed with a Dremel, then rough file and fine file and sandpaper to finish the edges. I'm going to show you that installed now. This is the running boards fully installed with mud flap on front. It's been cut out to fit around the piece right there of the running board. The running board runs right along, right to the rear. Perfect fit, no problems. Supports my weight and my wife's weight simultaneously without any flexing. These are the running boards finished, and I installed the LED courtesy light so that when you're walking up and unlock the car, lights up the ground for you. So that's the way my wife, when she comes on the garage, she leaves extremely early in the morning. It's dark. She doesn't like to turn the light on because then she can't turn it off. This way she'll be able to get right into her car, be able to walk right to it and be able to see it. Have a good night.